Hi there, Sugar Snaps. Welcome back to the studio. If you're new here, welcome in. My name's Brittany. I'm glad to have you. Today, I want to share a quick tutorial on ice dyeing muslin or cotton fabrics using these Dharma fiber reactive dyes. To begin, you're going to need soda ash, a bin with water, some stir spoons, a dust mask, preferably an N95 if you can get your hands on one. I'm just using a basic dust mask here, a pair of gloves, a measuring spoon, some fabric. You're going to want a 100% plant fiber, so cotton, linen, hemp, something like that. And then the Dharma fiber reactive dyes or other brand of fiber reactive dye. This is a dye that does not need heat to apply to the fabric or to adhere to the fabric, so we can do it with the ice dyeing because there's no heat involved with ice dyeing. Our first step is to add 2 cups of soda ash per gallon of water, and I have about 4 gallons here, so I need 8 cups of soda ash, which is a lot of soda ash. You can play around with the amount of soda ash that you use if you prefer not to do a whole cup or whole 2 cups. So first put on your dust mask because you don't want to be breathing in the soda ash. And now measure out the amount of soda ash you need for the amount of water that you are using, and pour it into your bin of water. Now you're gonna wanna put gloves on to stir up the soda ash in your bin of water. So stir it around until the water goes clear, or you can tell that there aren't any granules of the soda ash in the bottom of your bin. This can take a few minutes to dissolve, so go ahead and stir for a while, let it sit if you need to, and then come back to stir it in. I went ahead and did half the amount of soda ash that is suggested because 4 cups seemed like a lot in this bin of water. Once the soda ash is completely dissolved in your bin of water, you can add the fabric material. Make sure that you pre-wash your material before adding it so that any sizing or finishes that are on the material have completely washed off and been removed, so that as much of the soda ash and the dyes can adhere to the surface of the fabric as possible, so you get nice, rich, vibrant colors. So I'll open these up and put them in here. Press them into the water. You want to wear gloves when working with the soda ash water to protect your skin. So I'll press these into the water, stir them around, get them wet, and make sure all areas of the material have access or are touched by the liquid, and then allow this to sit for 15 minutes. Once your material has soaked for 15 minutes, you will want to pull it out of the bin and squeeze out any excess water so that it's not dripping wet. Once you pull the fabric out of the soda ash bath, it's time to create your bins of the fabric with the ice and the dye on top. So you want some sort of plastic bin or bin that you can have catch your dye material or the dye liquid, and you want something that the fabric can sit above the base of the bin in order to have the water drain through or the dye drain through. So I have a couple different options here. I have my paper making screen. This is a colander basket, and then a piece of grating from an old mop, just to show some different options. Now I'm going to put my gloves on in order to place the fabric, and the way you place the fabric is up to you. If you want it scrunched up, if you want it folded, you'd get a different look for each of those. So I'm just going to pile these on to the top of my gratings, kind of press them down. This one I'll put in my basket. The more crumpled and piled up your fabric is, the more unique the design will end up when you add the ice and the dye powder. Okay, now we're ready to add the ice. So you'll want to pile ice up over the material that you're dyeing in order to coat it with ice so that the dye can work through the ice. For the pieces that I have up on top of the screen, like this one and this one here, that's going to be harder to do to get ice over the whole thing because it wants to fall off the sides. On this one in the basket, it will be a lot easier. Now put your face mask and your gloves back on. I'm going to use the fiber reactive dyes, and just like the soda ash, you don't want to breathe this stuff. Okay, I'm gonna do each of these a different color. So I'm going to do forest green on this one, burgundy here, and Grecian blue on this one here. Allow the ice to melt through the fabric so there's no ice on the surface and the water's dripping through the material, pulling the dye through the material, and then we'll go through the rinsing process. So I thought I'd share some ideas on things that you could ice dye if you're having trouble coming up with ideas for your ice dyeing. So you can ice dye clothing, so things like cotton t-shirts, cotton socks, pants, anything that's a cotton material. You could do sweatshirts, jackets, those kinds of things. You could also do headbands, scrunchies, scarves, any sort of accessory that's a cotton or other plant fiber. You could also do home decor pieces, pillow covers, table linens like tablecloths, table runners, napkins, curtains, bed sheets, blankets. And you can also ice dye quilting cotton and use it in your handmade quilts. If you're a quilter and want to create your own custom fabrics for your quilt patterns, ice dyeing is a great way to create unique, colorful, vibrant dyed materials for fun quilts. The one caveat with ice dyeing is that it does need to be a cellulose fiber, so cotton, hemp, linen, bamboo, something that the fiber comes from a plant, because the fiber reactive dyes work best on those fibers. I put my fabric through the washer and dryer to rinse out any of the remaining dye after I did some rinsing by hand, and then dried it on a gentle cycle. And here is the finished material. I really like how the green turned out because you see some of the yellows and the dye powder split into the different colors, more so on this one than in the other pieces of fabric. You can see the yellow comes out, or the kind of lime green comes out in this fabric more so than the variety of colors show up in these other two pieces. Though we did get some nice diversity of blues and kind of the watercolory look of the ice dye pattern. And then on the pink, have a variety of bright pinks, fuchsias. This burgundy came out more of a rosy tone than a deep burgundy, but you can see some burgundy spots where the dye was most concentrated. So I'm happy with how these turned out. And now they're ready to be used in a quilt or some other project. If you're interested in doing ice dyeing projects, check out my dyeing playlist. I have a couple projects using the ice dyeing technique, as well as other dyeing techniques, including naturally dyeing. You can check that out here on the bottom of the screen, as well as in the description below. Ice dyeing is a really cool technique because you're using dye powders that are made up of multiple different colors to create the color that dye powder is meant to be. And so, like we see in this green material, there's a lot of yellow and some blue tints that pop through. Bright yellow spot here because the green is made up of blue and yellow particles of dye, and so that really shows up nicely in the ice dyeing as the dye powder splits and the color breaks apart in the dyeing process. So it's less noticeable in the blue and the pink, but you can still see some yellows coming through like this. There's some orangey pinks in here, and there's a variety of different peaches and corals and pinks and fuchsias in this pink one as well. So it's just fun to see how the dye responds to the ice, and you end up with a very unique piece of fabric. Thanks so much for watching and supporting my channel. If you haven't already, like and subscribe so you get notified whenever I put out a new video. Happy ice dyeing, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.